Imagine waking up tomorrow morning and feeling that same energy you had back in your 30s. Your circulation pumping strong, your mind sharp, your body actually wanting to move. What if I told you that sitting in your kitchen cabinet right now, probably next to your cinnamon and black pepper, there's a tiny little spice that could genuinely help make that happen? I'm Dr. Chloe Bennett, and I've been practicing integrative medicine for over 25 years. I've worked with thousands of men, guys in their 50s, 60s, 70s, even their 80s, who came into my office feeling like their bodies had just given up on them. Tired all the time, sluggish circulation, low energy, just not feeling like themselves anymore. And over the years, I've learned that sometimes the most powerful medicine isn't found in a prescription bottle. Sometimes it's found in nature. Today, I want to talk to you about cloves, and specifically, a very precise way of using them that most people completely get wrong. Now, before you roll your eyes and think, Doc, come on, a spice is going to fix my energy, stick with me, because what I'm about to share with you isn't folk remedy nonsense. There's real science behind this, and I'm going to walk you through exactly how it works, why most people waste the full potential of cloves every single day, and what you should actually be doing instead. By the end of this, you're going to have a simple morning routine you can start literally tomorrow. No expensive supplements, no pharmacy run, just something you probably already have at home. Let's get into it. So first, let me explain what makes cloves so remarkable from a physiological standpoint. Inside every single clove, there's a compound called eugenol. Now, eugenol is classified as a phenylpropanoid. It's the primary bioactive component that gives cloves their distinctive smell, and it's also responsible for most of their medicinal power. I've been reading the research on eugenol for years, and what consistently impresses me is how it interacts with the cardiovascular system. Here's what happens when eugenol enters your bloodstream. It begins stimulating the endothelial cells. Those are the cells that line the interior walls of your arteries and veins. When eugenol activates those cells, they start producing something called nitric oxide. Now, if you've heard of nitric oxide before, you know it's kind of a big deal. It's a naturally occurring gas in the body that acts as a vasodilator, meaning it causes your blood vessels to relax and widen. Think of it like this. Imagine your arteries are like garden hoses that have been pinched shut for years. Nitric oxide is what releases that pinch. Blood starts flowing the way it's supposed to, freely, powerfully, efficiently. And when blood flow improves, everything downstream improves with it. Your heart doesn't have to work as hard. Your muscles get better oxygen delivery. Your brain gets more of the nutrients it needs to stay sharp. A lot of men over 50 describe this chronic feeling of coldness in their hands and feet, that pins and needles sensation, the kind of sluggishness that makes you feel 20 years older than you are. That is often a circulation issue, and eugenol addresses that directly at the source. Now, here's something that genuinely surprised me when I first dug into the research. A study examining clove extract found that when used correctly, it can significantly increase blood flow within just a few hours of consumption. The key phrase there is used correctly, because this is where most people, and I see this all the time, completely undermine themselves without realizing it. Ask anyone how they use cloves, and they'll tell you they throw them in hot tea, they boil them in water, they add them to a hot recipe. Makes sense, right? Heat extracts flavor. Heat should extract the good stuff too, except that's not how eugenol works. Eugenol is highly volatile at high temperatures. When you boil cloves or steep them in near boiling water, you're essentially cooking off the very compound you're trying to capture. You get the aroma, sure, your kitchen smells amazing, but the therapeutic value? You've just poured it down the drain with the steam. I had a patient, retired firefighter from outside of Phoenix, been dealing with poor circulation and low energy for about 6 years when he first came to see me. Real salt of the earth kind of guy. Not someone who's easily impressed by natural remedies. He'd actually tried clove tea before, boiling it up every morning for a couple weeks, felt nothing, wrote the whole thing off. Sound familiar? That's because he was destroying the active compound before it ever had a chance to work. When I showed him the cold steep method, which I'll explain in just a second, a funny thing changed for him within about 10 days. So here's the correct method, and I want you to write this down, or at least remember it, because it really is this simple. Take 3 to 5 whole cloves, not ground, whole cloves, and place them in a glass or a cup of room temperature water. Not hot water, not warm water. Room temperature. Cover the glass so nothing evaporates out overnight and let it sit for 8 to 10 hours. Most people do this right before bed and let it steep through the night. That's the sweet spot. 8 to 10 hours of cold steeping allows the volatile oils and all the active compounds, including that eugenol we talked about, to slowly dissolve into the water without being degraded by heat. Every molecule stays intact. The water essentially becomes a concentrated bioavailable solution of everything good that cloves have to offer. Then in the morning, on an empty stomach, you drink it, the whole glass. Why on an empty stomach? Because your gut absorbs compounds differently when there's no food competing for uptake. On an empty stomach, eugenol moves into your bloodstream faster and in higher concentrations. Within an hour or two, you'll notice something. Most men describe it as a warmth, not a flush, not a buzz, just a steady, quiet warmth spreading through the chest and limbs. That's your circulation responding. That's nitric oxide doing its job. Now I want to address something right away, because every time I talk about this, I get the same question. Dr. Bennett, can I use ground cloves instead of whole cloves? I hear you. A lot of you have ground cloves already in the spice rack and not whole ones. These asses. Here's the honest answer. Ground cloves will work, but they're less effective for this specific method. Here's why. When cloves are ground, the volatile compounds start oxidizing immediately and continue to degrade over time. By the time ground cloves have been sitting in your spice jar for 6 months, a significant portion of the eugenol content is already gone. If you use ground cloves, use them fresh ground from whole cloves. A small spice grinder does the trick. And reduce the steeping time slightly to about 6 hours, because ground cloves release their compounds faster. If whole cloves are what you have, though, whole cloves are absolutely the preferred method. And for my patients managing type 2 diabetes, which is a lot of you, I know, the clove water itself is fine. Eugenol actually has demonstrated some beneficial effects on blood sugar regulation in the research. The plain clove water, no added sweeteners, is something I'm comfortable recommending for most people with diabetes. That said, always check with your own physician before making any changes to your health routine, especially if you're on medication. That's not me covering my bases with a disclaimer. That's genuine advice, because cloves do have real physiological effects, and those can interact with certain medications, particularly blood thinners. Now, let's talk about what happens over time with consistent use, because the overnight dramatic transformation thing is not what I'm selling you here. I believe in honest medicine. What most people notice in the first week is improved energy in the mornings. That grinding fatigue that makes the first hour of the day feel like a slog starts to ease up. After 2 to 3 weeks, men often report better mental clarity, improved mood, and a noticeable increase in physical stamina during things like yard work, walking, or exercise. Some of my patients in their 60s and 70s have told me they feel more like themselves than they have in years. Here's why the benefits compound over time. And this is the part that I find genuinely fascinating. Eugenol doesn't just work on circulation. It also influences the endocrine system. Specifically, it has a stimulating effect on the pituitary gland and the adrenal glands. These are the control centers for hormone production in the body. The pituitary gland, sitting right at the base of your brain, coordinates the body's entire hormonal orchestra. When eugenol supports its function, you get a downstream effect on the natural production of hormones tied to energy, vitality, and drive. For men specifically, this translates to more natural testosterone support. For women who might be watching this too, and I know some of you are, it supports estrogen balance. Now, I'm not saying cloves are hormone replacement therapy, they're not. What I am saying is that supporting the glands that regulate your hormones through natural compounds is a completely valid and underappreciated approach to healthy aging. And cloves, used consistently and correctly, can be one part of that picture. There's also the manganese content to consider. Cloves are one of the richest dietary sources of manganese in existence. Most people have no idea. Manganese is a trace mineral that plays a role in dozens of enzymatic processes in the body, including the activation of mitochondrial enzymes. Mitochondria, you might remember from high school biology, are the energy factories of your cells. When manganese levels are adequate, those factories run more efficiently. You produce more cellular energy. You feel less fatigued. It's not magic, it's biochemistry. All right, so let's talk about the golden combination. Because if clove water on its own is good, What I'm about to describe takes it to another level. Raw, natural honey. I want to be clear about something first, though, because not all honey is created equal. The stuff in the plastic bear-shaped bottle at most grocery stores, that's often been processed, pasteurized, and diluted to the point where most of the therapeutic compounds are gone. What you want is raw honey, unfiltered, unheated, straight from the hive. You'll find it at farmers markets, health food stores, or even local beekeepers. In the US, local honey is almost always your best bet, and it's not that hard to find. Here's why raw honey and cloves work so incredibly well together. Honey contains natural enzymes, trace minerals including zinc and boron, and simple sugars that the body absorbs almost instantly. But more importantly, for our purposes, honey acts as a bioavailability enhancer for plant compounds. When eugenol is mixed with honey, the honey's enzymatic environment actually helps transport the eugenol across the intestinal wall and into the bloodstream more efficiently than eugenol on its own. Think of it like a delivery driver who knows all the shortcuts. The package gets there faster and in better condition. Zinc, which is naturally present in raw honey, plays a direct role in testosterone production. Boron, another trace mineral in honey, has been shown in research to significantly increase free testosterone levels in men. We're talking measurable changes in just a week of supplementation in some studies. So when you combine the eugenol's hormonal gland stimulation with the zinc and boron from raw honey, you're hitting the testosterone support pathway from two completely different angles simultaneously. The way to do this is simple. After you've prepared your clove water overnight, in the morning, you add 1 small teaspoon, just one, don't overdo it, of raw honey to the glass before you drink it. Stir it in, let it dissolve for about 30 seconds, and drink it down. That's your morning ritual. Takes about 90 seconds total. Alternatively, if you prefer something a little more concentrated, you can mix a small teaspoon of raw honey with a pinch of finely ground cloves, fresh ground, remember, into a paste and take it straight off the spoon before breakfast. Some of my patients prefer this method because it feels more like taking something intentional. Either approach works. The combination is what matters. The feedback I've gotten from men who've stuck with this routine for 30 days or more is genuinely moving sometimes. I had a 68-year-old retired teacher from Colorado who told me he'd forgotten what it felt like to wake up and actually want to get out of bed. A 72-year-old Vietnam vet from Tennessee who said his joints felt looser, his mood was better, and his wife had noticed a difference in his energy around the house. These aren't outliers. These are the kinds of responses I hear consistently from men who commit to this practice. And look, I want to be straight with you, because after 25 years of practice, I've seen too many people get burned by miracle claims. Cloves and honey are not going to reverse serious medical conditions. If you have a significant hormonal issue, a cardiovascular disease diagnosis, or a chronic illness, you need to be working with your doctor. What I'm describing today is a complementary practice, something that supports your body's natural systems and helps optimize function within a healthy range. It's not a substitute for medical care. What it is, though, is real. The mechanisms are documented, the compounds are well studied, and the simplicity of it, 3 to 5 cloves in a glass of water overnight, a teaspoon of raw honey in the morning, means there's almost no barrier to trying it. You don't need a prescription. You don't need to spend $100 a month on supplements. You need a jar of cloves, which costs about $3, and some raw honey from your local farmer's market. One more practical point I want to make before I wrap up, because I know some of you are going to go home and grab whatever cloves you've had in the back of the cabinet since 2019. Spice freshness actually matters here. Old cloves lose their eugenol content over time through oxidation. If your cloves have been sitting around for more than a year, go grab a fresh jar. You'll notice the smell immediately. Fresh cloves have a sharp, almost electric intensity to them. If yours smell faint or dusty, they're past their prime for this purpose. Also start slow. 3 cloves in your first week, not 5. Eugenol is a powerful compound, and some people, particularly those with sensitive stomachs, can experience mild irritation if they go too hard too fast. 3 cloves in a full glass of water is the right starting dose. You can work up to 5 after the first week if you're feeling good. And if you ever experience any unusual symptoms, stomach cramping, increased bleeding, anything that doesn't feel right, stop and talk to your doctor. I know some of you watching this are skeptical. That's healthy. It means you're thinking critically, and I respect that. I'm not asking you to take this on faith. I'm asking you to try it for 2 weeks. 14 mornings of cold steeped clove water with a teaspoon of raw honey, and pay attention to how you feel. Keep a simple note on your phone if you want. Energy level, mood, how your body felt that day. Let your own experience be the data. Because here's what I know after 25 years of watching people heal. The body wants to function well. It is designed to function well. Half the time, what we interpret as just getting old is actually the body responding to decades of depletion. Depletion of minerals, of circulation support, of the kinds of natural compounds our ancestors got routinely through whole foods and spices that we've since refined out of our diets. Giving the body what it actually needs in the right form at the right time isn't magic. It's just good medicine. Cloves have been used medicinally for over 2,000 years across dozens of cultures, in traditional Ayurvedic medicine, in Chinese medicine, in the folk medicine of Southeast Asia and the Middle East. Cloves appear over and over again as a remedy for fatigue, circulation issues, and vitality. They didn't have double-blind clinical trials back then, but they had something we sometimes undervalue today: generations of careful observation of what actually works in the human body. Modern science has now caught up and given us the molecular explanation for what those ancient practitioners observed. Eugenol, nitric oxide, endothelial stimulation, mitochondrial enzyme activation. The science confirms the tradition. So, give it a shot. Tonight, before you go to bed, put 3 whole cloves in a glass of room temperature water, cover it up, go to sleep. And in the morning, add a teaspoon of raw honey, drink it down on an empty stomach, and start paying attention. I'd love to hear how it goes for you. Drop your experience in the comments, how long you've been doing it, what you've noticed, any questions that come up along the way. Your story might be exactly what someone else out there needs to hear to finally give this a try. And if you found this useful, hit that like button and subscribe, because I've got a lot more coming that's going to go even deeper into natural approaches to men's health and healthy aging. I'm Dr. Chloe Bennett, and I'll see you in the next one.